Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squad for boxing news and views from around the internet. And another heavyweight news mashup video today, starting with Oleksandr Usyk, who says he likes being in Deontay Wilder's head. So the WBC champion recently stated, Oleksandr Usyk is not a threat to me. He's too small for me. He does a lot of movement and stuff like that, but that don't faze me. So Usyk, talking to Fansided, said, I don't really care what he's saying. I don't care what he's thinking. Actually, I like it that he's talking about me because it means I'm already into his head. He's a champion and he knows what it takes. For me, it really doesn't matter, but I like that he's thinking about me. Oleksandr Usyk talking to Fansided. And should that fight ever come to pass in the next year or two, I really like that fight, and I know some people are saying Oleksandr Usyk is going to be too small for heavyweight, but I disagree with that sentiment. Stylistically, he's going to give a number of heavyweights trouble. In a fight with Deontay Wilder, it's interesting for a number of reasons. Obviously, Wilder the much bigger fighter, longer reach, decent jab, and obviously that vicious power punch, the right hand, but let's not forget the left hook. Could Oleksandr Usyk overcome the power of Deontay Wilder and evade him to get a decision or even wear him down and stop him? Number of interesting storylines with a potential fight between these two. If it ever comes to pass, it's a very good win on either's resume. So, I know we often talk about potential matchups, but I would really like it if this one did get made for both guys. It's a very good fight. Moving on, Dereck Chisora has had a media day in London ahead of his fight with David Price on October the 26th. And just like the original press conference where he made a number of controversial statements, he's again said a number of things in this media day which certainly will grab a few headlines. So he says of Frank Warren, he needs to stop saying my name. He's a dinosaur in a young man's game. Frank Warren, you need to retire and hang out with your grandkids. The boxing game is not yours anymore, so don't ever say my name again. And why would he say these things? Well, it's because Frank Warren keeps talking about Dereck Chisora and potentially a fight with Joe Joyce and Chisora. And Chisora is not interested unless there's a certain amount of money. And he went on to add, I don't need to fight Joe Joyce. But perhaps one of the more interesting comments that he made at this media day was, one, he's not being trained by anyone at the moment, and two, he won't have anyone in his corner giving him advice on fight night. So that's not to say that he won't have anyone in his corner doing the usual things, cut man and yada yada yada, but he is saying that he's been in boxing for a number of years and he doesn't need to necessarily have someone training him or being in his corner giving him advice. And to me, when I heard that, I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. I know that when he parted ways with Dave Coldwell a number of weeks ago, people were asking the question, well, what's going to happen? And I think people just assumed that David Haye, who is his promoter / manager, would just step in and sort of fill the void and be training him for this fight in the number of weeks that were leading up to it. Initially, it would have been Joseph Parker. But Chisora has said that he doesn't have a trainer, and also he's not going to be having anyone sort of in his corner giving him advice on fight night. Whether actually that happens or not, I guess it remains to be seen. But, I mean, you can sort of ask a couple of questions about this. Is this just Dereck Chisora being a bit cheap here? Should he have someone in his corner? Because for me personally, I would argue yes. I think we've seen having someone, one, training you, and two, giving you advice in the corner on fight night is very beneficial. Yeah, there is a number of red flags with these sorts of comments. Maybe this is just him playing games, but I think it is a red flag and actually beneficial for David Price if he doesn't have someone giving him advice on the night in the corner. Because obviously, even though he's a seasoned boxer, it doesn't mean that he's not above getting advice to make adjustments to help him with his in-ring performance, especially a second pair of eyes who's not necessarily in the heat of the action, heat of the moment, fighting, throwing those punches, can see things, an experienced eye, experienced ear to give him some advice. I just think that is a red flag. And if there is no one in the corner and he's not being trained at the moment, I mean, we know David Haye is around. He's training in Haye's gym, and obviously there's Ruben Tabares who's doing some of the physical stuff with Chisora. But if it is as loose as Chisora is claiming, red flag for me, and certainly that would sort of even out the odds just a little bit in terms of how I would think about the fight, maybe from 70-30 to 60-40. How about you? Do you think this is a red flag from Dereck Chisora? So on to some other comments before I move on to my next topic. So in response to Shannon Briggs labeling him a journeyman, he said that Briggs is a hype man and he would rather be a journeyman. He said all Briggs is doing is being a hype man now. He was asked, is Jarrell Miller next? And he said, yep, 100% yes. And then later he said if he was to fight Miller, Miller would have to be tested for every drug. And it was also confirmed he will be getting some rounds in with Anthony Joshua in the coming week as he prepares for his fight, but obviously Joshua for his rematch with Andy Ruiz Jr. on December 7th. Tyrone Spong has posted the results of a third VADA test to his social media. So just for clarity, this is not in relation to the test that he failed, which was apparently the second test that he had. This is a third test. So you can see here on screen, this letter is to advise you that one or more of your collected specimens have been analyzed for performance-enhancing drugs through the Voluntary Anti-Doping Agency VADA program. Analysis for the dates listed below are complete. And then it goes on to say preliminary results, negative. And Spong, he posts a statement along with this. Just received word from VADA that my third test and last urine sample from October 2nd was negative for all prohibited substances. As I've said all along, I'm a clean fighter and the previous results were inaccurate or manipulated. Who is responsible for this? It's shameful that I've been robbed of the opportunity. His team knew I was a very big risk and could hurt him and needed a way out to avoid total embarrassment. I've been wronged and I'm pissed off. I'm willing to get on a plane tomorrow and step into the ring tomorrow night. So just to be clear, this is not exonerating Tyrone Spong. These are the results of a third sample that was taken on October the 2nd with the results saying negative. It is different from the adverse finding, which is on a separate sample. So we'll have to see what happens next because Tyrone Spong, he is sort of doubling down on his assertion that the results of the previous test were either inaccurate or manipulated, but the onus is on him to actually prove his innocence, not for anyone else. And this whole thing for me about conspiracies and other people manipulating results, I'm not buying it. I just think there's a failed result and it's now on him to prove that he is a clean fighter. And obviously with results like this helps, but he still has to obviously explain away the adverse finding from the other sample. And moving on, just finally I wanted to round this bulletin with, it's not so much a heavyweight boxing story, but it involves a heavyweight boxer who's crossing over to the WWE. Tyson Fury is going to get some more promotional push for a potential fight with Deontay Wilder. He's going to be crossing over to the WWE to face Braun Strowman. This will be October the 31st in Saudi Arabia. So I think, an appearance on WWE, he had a couple, and I sort of thought that might be the end of it. But now he's full-blown scripted into the WWE, and he's going to have a match with Braun Strowman. So I guess watch the space for Tyson Fury. But I think this is brilliant advertising for Fury in terms of lifting his profile, which ultimately will help him get some potential new eyes on the rematch with Deontay Wilder. It may not necessarily be everyone's cup of tea, but I think this is good promotional work from him and his team. Anyway, I'll leave it there. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.